After a shooting at a Florida gaming convention over the weekend that left 3 people dead, including the shooter, and 9 people injured, including a New Jersey resident.
Excuse me, not an easy out.
We are learning tonight that the shooter, 24-year-old David Katz of Baltimore, had been hospitalized twice in his teens for mental illness. Katz opened fire at a restaurant in Jacksonville, Florida, after losing in a Madden NFL 19 video game tournament. He then turned the gun on himself. Among those injured was George Amadeo of Belford, New Jersey, who suffered injuries to his foot. This whole incident has caused some controversy on social media about the gaming community itself. Joining me now is Dan Butchko. He is the founder and CEO of Playcrafting, which is the company that runs the largest gaming community in New York City. They also train game developers. Dan, welcome to Chasing News. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
You run this community of gamers. I think even as of today, people are starting to hear about for the first time that there's such a thing as a gaming community. What do you say to someone who would talk about the violence of these games? I understand the game that was being played at the time was Madden. It was football, not Grand Theft Auto, not Call of Duty, all that. What do you say about the violence in these games and the influence that it has on young kids?
Right. There is no evidence to prove that games inherently make people more violent. Games exist in all shapes and sizes. Madden, as you mentioned, is not a violent game. And I think the fact that it's not a violent game and the esports arena and the event itself is something that was very safe and inclusive speaks to the fact that it's not the content of these games, it's the mentality of the person who's playing.
Dan, what about the intensity? I mean, I think from a gamer's perspective, it's as intense as any football game on the field, any athlete or any competitive person, whether it's music, sports. That intensity, and what do you say about this kid? I mean, we don't know everything yet about what happened, but from all the reports, he lost and then returned and took out his anger on fellow gamers.
The intensity of the game and the competition itself is not a reflection of the content of the game. It's a reflection of the person who's playing that game. There are competitions like that nationwide, worldwide, all year round, that we never hear about because things like this are not happening there. This is the exception and not the rule.
Dan, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining me tonight. All right, let's bring in our A-plus panel for tonight's show. I want to introduce Allison Young, Republican strategist. Good to see you, Allison.
Hi, Bill.
And Peter Brown. He's a Democratic councilman from Linden, New Jersey. Good to see you, Peter.
Thank you.
Allison, I'm going to start with you. You heard what Dan said. I tend to agree with him. I don't think it has anything to do with the games itself. One thing that Dan said that I think I have not heard a lot of people talking about, and that is securing these soft targets. Again, how many conversations are we going to have about people in the public square being completely vulnerable to a madman, to somebody who snaps?
What that leads me to, Bill, is when we've got the immediate knee-jerk reaction of some of our public officials like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer now is saying the road to this goes right through the NRA. We need more common sense gun laws to prevent things like this from happening. Well, guess what? The Parkland shooting happened in Florida. This happened in Florida. They do have gun laws in place. That's not the road to it. What we have to look at is, even where Dan was going, is to the isolation of these kids that are playing these games all the time. What's happening in their mental health and how are games contributing to this? This is the one time that I am thrilled to say that we should be talking about video games and their impact on public shootings and point, not this road to this does not go through the NRA.
Peter, are we blaming every single thing except the shooter? I mean, it went from we blame the NRA and now we're going to blame the gaming community? Is it parents? Is it school officials? Is it psychologists? Who's responsible?
I'm going to tell you right now, it's the parents. I play video games, and I have 2 young boys that play video games I play video games with, and we play Madden, we play NBA, and what I learned is you do get competitive and you get some of that team building exercise just like any other activity, and you talk, you have that dialogue, but then also I notice my own children when they get upset is about talking to them about that sportsmanship. It's about talking about how do you deal with losing. Parents, where are the parents when a kid is reacting or watching how much they're playing video games? We never talk about the parents. And when it comes to violent video games, remember there's a rating on these video games that is up to the parents to allow this content into their home. We're not talking about that.
All right. Thanks, guys.